Senate has urged the Central Bank of Nigeria to adjust its policy on cash withdrawal limits in response to the public outcry that greeted the announcement. However, Arise correspondent Georgina Ezeaka reports that there was a mild drama before the proceedings.
Proceedings commencing at 12:30 p.m. as against the usual time of 10 a.m. Deputy President of the Senate, Ovie Omoagege, came in by 12:16 without any explanation. When Rivers East Senator George Sekibo raised the point of order, the Deputy Senate President ruled him out of order.
The senators are not supposed to come here and then just wait. Well, we don't know the fate whether you are around between us here and you are not. I think that next time, if you know that you are in another third corner, you can just delegate power to the leader of the Senate. He can act as the pro tempore Senate president. And then you do your business where you are doing. You finish and come back.
As you just read that, it says, if in the opinion of the President of the Senate, a prima facie case of breach of your privilege has been made, it is the opinion of the President of the Senate that a prima facie case has not been made. I therefore rule out of order.
The Red Chamber then settled down to conduct the legislative business of the day. Deputy governors of the Central Bank nominees were confirmed during plenary.
The nomination of Mrs. Aisha Undanazu Ahmed as Deputy Governor of CBN is hereby confirmed. The nomination of Edward Lamitek Adamu as Deputy Governor of CBN is hereby confirmed.
The Senate then began the deliberation on the new withdrawal limit of the CBN. The chairman on Banking and Finance, Senator Obasani, in his lead debate, acknowledged the significant benefits of the policy to the economy, but suggested the need for wide consultation with stakeholders before the policy commences.
The Central Bank latest action on Naira redesign and nationwide implementation of cashless policy are intended to further sustain this achievement in the quest to foster a safe, credible, and efficient payment system that is the pride of all Nigerians and the envy of the world. It is neither targeted at any segment of the society nor intended to disenfranchise hardworking Nigerian citizens and businesses as insulated in some parts.
We also want to protect our people in the rural areas from being attacked, by bandits, being attacked by armed robbers who believe that there's a piggy bank in their homes. I think the moment it becomes clear to everyone that we've gone cashless, full-blown, that there's no money being hoarded in anybody's house, I think there will be reductions in armed robbery and banditry attacks as well.
Senators who support the policy say it will help mop up about 3 trillion naira currently in circulation.
Today, I would recommend the highest denomination to be 100 naira. The highest. And that's the only way we can even de-dollarize the Nigerian economy. We are killing ourselves by accumulating dollars in our houses.
We lack adequate critical infrastructure to support the cashless banking policy, but we must continue in the implementation of this policy because of the gains.
Some lawmakers say the policy will put about 1.4 million point-of-sale or POS operators and others in the informal sector out of business.
The farmers in my constituency who engage on their farms, dry season and rainy season, they need a lot of money.
By end of this month, with what they have mopped up, we should see at least a 7 percentage point in inflation rate. If it doesn't happen, then we should take out inflation as one of the reasons that we are introducing this cashless policy.
There are people who are already making a living out of this, out of the POS operation. The informal economy, part of informal economy. What are you going to do with them?
The CBN approved POS operators and registered them and took monies from them, no matter how little. And now, those people can only do so little. It took so many people off the roads.
Most of the senators here agree that the timeline and threshold set by the Central Bank of Nigeria should be extended.
So I'm suggesting that the threshold should be 500,000 naira, not 100,000. And for withdrawal per daily should be 100,000. And I say this, that this will be in line with what is realistic for our society.
I've done this in our state for over 10 years with all the amount of industries we are running in Naba. We have done 3 million per day. So I don't see why they should come to 100,000 a week.
Despite concerns raised about the report not being specific on the recommended threshold limit, the Senate ruled in favor of an adjustment and mandated the committee to ensure an aggressive oversight of the CBN on its commitment to flexible adjustment of the withdrawal limit and report back on the outcome.
That the Senate should support the bank in the continuous implementation of the transformational payments and financial industry initiatives in line with its mandate in accordance with CBN Act. Those in favor of this will say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Georgina Ndukwezaika, Arise News.
All right, I want to have a start with this.
Well, very in-depth reports there by Georgina, so well done. But now speaking to obviously this has come up in debate since last week on the 6th of December. The CBN governor announced the new withdrawal limits for individuals and for organizations. Interesting times. There was a very robust conversation in the Senate. On the sidelines, it's clear to see that it's election season. You know, the chambers was very scanty. However, it didn't prevent that conversation from happening. I think it's also important to note a few things as well. Later on today, hopefully, the CBN governor will appear before the House of Reps to defend and speak to this new policy and talk about the gains to help also inform the decision by the House of Reps as to how to move. Now, some of the arguments that have come up are things that analysts across have said following the announcement of the new policy, chief of which is the impact on rural dwellers and small business owners, especially the POS operators. And they've talked about the fact that the fact that it's a good policy isn't in contention for a number of these senators. However, what they've talked about is, number one, the timing, number two, a wider consultation, because it's meant to come into effect on the 9th of January 2023. That's in about 2 to 3 weeks. Very short timing. They've also asked that how has information or campaign been disseminated, especially to rural dwellers. They've also talked about, which we've mentioned a number of times, the fact that we do not have the technological infrastructure to fully embrace a cashless society. I'll give an example and then I'll move on. For a few days now, the bank app I use, and a number of people have talked about this, has not been able to transfer money from its bank to another bank. This has happened a number of times. I have had to step in using cash as an alternative. Ideally, I'm all for the cashless society. I hold as little cash as possible. But in situations like this where you can be embarrassed or things would happen, you need to ensure that you sort out these challenges with technology to ensure that we're able to embrace this cashless society that the CBN is pushing for. Again, I'm looking forward to the outcome of the CBN governor's appearance before the House of Reps this later on today.
Dr. Bati? Okay, on October 26th, the Central Bank of Nigeria announced its decision to redesign the 100 naira, the 200 naira, 500 naira, and 1,000 naira notes, and then announced that people will have, a window of 3 months to return the old notes, because the deadline will be January 9 next year for you to return, and that by January 31, of course, you won't be able to use your old notes anymore. Of course, that was bound to generate some controversies, because the argument put forward by the CBN was that the policy was necessary. One, to check the amount of money outside the banking system. Out of 3.3 trillion in circulation, we were told that 2.7 trillion naira were outside the vaults. Two, also to check currency counterfeiting. 3, to encourage financial inclusion. 4, to check the use of the naira for payment. 5, to reduce the amount of money in circulation. And the CBN pointed out that it was within its powers to do so under Section 2D of the CBN Act, Section 19, 20, and 47. And that the last time that Nigeria had redesigned or changed any currency was in 2014 against the global best practice. Of course, this was bound to generate concern. There were talks about whether this is about the election in 2023 or not. But now the representatives of the people have taken up the matter. First, the House of Reps. Second, the Senate. The House of Reps about a week ago said the CBN governor and his team must appear before the House of Representatives today to come and explain the policy afresh. The Senate yesterday debated the matter and arrived at a number of resolutions. I think as representatives of the people, what they have done basically is to reflect also the concerns of the people about that policy. But what everyone should note is that nobody, either in the House of Reps or the Senate, complained about the legality of what the CBN has done and the powers that it has exercised in this regard. Two, nobody said what has been done, does not have the support, of the policy system, within Nigeria, or that it is a violation of global best practice. What they are complaining about is, one, the timing, because in many parts of the world, people are given up to about 6 months when you have this kind of redesign. But the CBN has given just about 3 months. But if you look at the law, that is what is in the CBN Act. You need just 3 months. Two, the CBN has the support of the President of Nigeria under Section 19 of the same CBN Act. Three, the CBN made it very clear about a week ago, Godwin Emefiele made it clear that the CBN is not rigid. It is willing to listen to ideas and to review the process as and when the need arises. So all of those concerns, expressed by the lawmakers, I don't think that the CBN has this attitude that it was going to be rigid about it. Because if it were to be rigid, then it would be draconian. Then it will be that the people have not participated in the process. And it's also important to listen to the people. So all those concerns about infrastructure, about rural areas, about small businesses, about the timing and all of that, I believe that when the CBN governor and his team show up at the House of Reps today, they will provide a robust response. However, the Senate has ordered the CBN to extend the cash withdrawal threshold. Well, I don't know whether the Senate of Nigeria can issue such orders, but of course it's within its powers, to make resolutions. And resolutions on executive positions are not necessarily binding, except the CBN, the National Assembly wants to review or amend the CBN Act. But it's just enough that the CBN as an institution has said it's not rigid, it's open to ideas, and we'll see what comes out of that process.
So going back to it, I think our lawmakers are throwing away the baby with the bathwater. I think we're getting too hysterical. And let us go back to the facts. There are facts on ground. Opinions are a dime a dozen. But what are the facts on ground? I'll read the facts to you real quickly. The CBN says there are cash withdrawal limits. But if you must exceed the limits, there's a processing fee of 5% for individuals and 10% for corporates. So they've not said you can't exceed the limits. But if you must exceed the limit, and there's a processing fee of 5%. Let us get that right, because all of this that we're saying as though the CBN said, okay, there's a limit, you can't exceed it, it's not true. What the CBN said in their statement is that if you are going to exceed the limits, there's a 5% processing fee for individuals and the same. There have been legal back and forth as regards. Femi Falana brought up a case that is a money laundering act that says you can't take more than 5 million. Also, we all know that there are processing fees for certain amounts of money. I think over 2 million or thereabouts. I don't know the threshold now. You pay certain amount of processing fee back to the bank. Why is the CBN doing this? The argument the CBN is making is that we're trying to fight inflation. When you look at inflation over 20%, it's caused mainly because of too much liquidity in the system. And that's why everything they've tried, increased interest rate, has not worked. So they're using various monetary policy tools, redesign of Naira to be able to curb more money in. We all know the 3.2 billion threshold, 2.7 trillion away from the bank vaults and the likes, the fact that the velocity of money has become problematic and all of that. And we saw those things when the money redesign happened, how we had money stocked in people's homes. So all of this is part of the measure. I think the greater argument is this. Where we can hold the CBN and say, oh, not good enough an argument, is after this has been done, after the timeline ends in January, and we don't see inflation numbers come down. Because we forget, and a lot of Nigerians are looking at just this category, they forget that Nigerians are paying higher taxes on inflation. Cost of commodities, I bet you some things you bought at 500,000 Naira last year is going close to 1 million Naira today. So you're already paying a tax on inflation, which a lot of Nigerians are not talking about. And that's why I say we're throwing the baby away with the bathwater. So if the CBN is putting these measures in place to be able to bring down inflation, bring down that liquidity in the system, I think the true test is, will inflation come down after all of this has been employed? And that time will tell on.